righty. Oh, we'll see if anybody shows up. Anybody shows up. Thank you.
Yep. You one that's popped out?
I'm just gonna drop it below. Look like I got no teeth. My lip has dropped down below my teeth. Isn't that weird? Weird. Makes me look toothless. Watch out. Passing wind is DZ Saber. Hello, hello, Kevin Rosenberg. Hey Kevin, how are you? Mermaids Chorus, Larry Henry. Ho ho. Nice to see you guys. Dennis Engel, should I say toothless? I'm not. See? Look. Teeth. I got pictures from a couple of years ago when I smile on a teeth show, and now they don't. It's weird. And it's not the mustache. It's my lips. I don't know what's happened. I need to talk to somebody about it. You know, I've heard of breasts drooping, but upper lip? I don't know. Confucius, Cynthia Norman, hello, hello. Let's see. Add somebody. We're going to turn you guys blue here. Cynthia, hello. Good, we got you. Got you covered. Who else is here? Maria Cochran. Thank you, Maria. Love you. Love you, loving. Love you, loving my videos. Doing good working on the new 120 C4 Fat Boy. Wow. Couldn't replace my 80 rimless Frank. Well, good for you. That's cool. 120 is a fabulous tank. It's 4 by 4 by 2. Is that right? 4 by 2 by 2. It's a half a cube. Or a quarter of a cube. 4 by 2 by 2. That's a quarter of a cube. Is that right? Yeah, because it would take 2 on top and 1 alongside to make a 4 by 4 cube. It's 120 gallons, 4 by 2 by 2, but that 2-foot depth is really remarkable. Gives you a fabulous tank. Eric Motama. Hello, Eric from Colombia. Is that Colombia in Canada or Colombia in South America? Which Colombia? Or am I being stupid? That's possible too. Oh, right. Thank you, Luke, for all the background help. We have a technician now, because I can't keep any of this straight anymore. In fact, everything is out of control. So I'm now gathering my flock around me like a hen with her chickens to keep this thing going. Fortunately, I've got smarter people than me on board. A little difficult for me to handle that, but I'm managing. Kevin needs my dirt additive. Dynamite, you know how to get it. It's available either through Get Gills or through Father.Fish. Father.Fish. We have an absolutely incredible deal on plants this week. You get 5 different species of plants, 3 each with a couple of extras thrown in, and then a bulb on top of that, typically a tiger lotus, and some kind of sword or crypt on top of that for $49.99. Such a deal. That's, I don't even know how many plants that is. 15 times 5, 75 plus 5. That's 80 plants. 80 plants. 80 individual plants. Which is enough to do a 10-gallon tank heavily planted. Hey, Kenneth, how are you? Nice to see you. Nice to have you here. Peace, love, and light, and blessings to you and yours. How's your daughter? The tank behind me, that is a great tank, isn't it? That's a 22-year-old tank. I pulled out some of the big plants, not all of them, but some that were right in the front, and set them up in the new tank. Let's see, is that video out? Yeah. This is the. Let me walk over here. We're gonna be bragging on this half the night, so I'll give you guys here a preview. This is brand new 15-gallon tall. That's a 4-leaf clover right in front, and then these alongside it are dwarf swords, pygmy swords, Aponogeton. I think they're 2 Aponogetons. There's a big Sagittarius and a broadleaf, whatever that's called, broadleaf something. I'll think of it. A lot of plants in here. It's loaded with plants, and that's really what you need to do when you're setting up a new tank. Now, I always put heaters in my tank. I'm living in an environment where if I didn't, it would get down into the 60s. So I can't afford to do that. So I've got heaters, and they're set on between 80 and 82. So I keep it warm. On top of, I also have a sponge filter in there. It's a new tank, and I think it's always a good idea to make sure you've got moving water and some kind of filtration just to kind of get the tank started. Cynthia added the extra sand to the 125. It cleared up the water, just like you said. Thanks again. You're amazing. No, you're amazing, Cynthia. Amazing and brilliant. Joanne McLean. Just turned you blue. Nice to see you here. Silver Creek. Hey, oh, Silver Creek. Good to see you. Silver Creek is putting together a plant farm. At some point, we will turn our plant operation over to Silver Creek. Right now I'm working with a wholesaler. I'm going to see if we can't get them to start shipping to him. I'm going to try to get a shipment to him this week. And then he's putting together grow out ponds that really look spectacular. I'm really excited about that. Tisha Jones. The dimensions of the 22. It's, oh, I can't move the mouse. The mouse is being controlled. Oh, we're checking the speakers, I guess. The 22-year-old tank is a 30-gallon. It's a 55, 6 inches shorter. So it's 4 foot by 12 inches. 4 foot by 12 inches by 14, I think. Maybe not quite. If I got here, let me measure it. I keep saying without checking. What is it? It's 13. 13 tall. Front to back. Probably also 13. Front to back, 12 and a half. 12 front to back, 48 long, and 13 tall. So it's a 30-gallon in any case. Here's one of the baby bettas. Look at that. We wound up with about 25 bettas. They're all right now about an inch and doing real well. I haven't figured out. It looks like more females than males. I had a woman who bought a betta from me last fall, and I shipped it, and it did not survive. And I was hoping that there would be a replacement for her in this current batch, and there is. Just a stunningly beautiful kind of sky blue white, more white than blue. Just a beautiful, beautiful fish. Tina Jones. We need to turn you brilliant for oxygen exchange. Absolutely right. Snake Plissken is here. Hey, hey, hey. Should I use water out of my established tanks to give my to fill my 5-gallon to give it a head start? Yeah, it's always a good idea. Old water. Remember what Laura said about old water. And old water is better than new water. If you have old water, you want to keep your water as much as possible, unless the water is just ruined, and it's kind of hard to ruin water. You can get all kind of stuff in it, but it cleans. I mean, water is water. It cleans, and it's just preferable to taking something out of the spigot. Well waters may be a little different. I have well water here. You're very welcome, Tina. Jennifer McFadden. Do fiddler crabs do well in 10-gallon tanks? Fiddler crabs do not do well in any tanks, but I'll tell you how to keep them. Fiddler crabs are, what's the word I want? They're a crab that digs tunnels. They're a tunneling crab. But the opening of the tunnel needs to be out of the water at least part of the time. So in the wild, they're in a tidal area. The tide comes in, floods their tunnel, goes out, and then it's exposed. And that's when they feed. They come out when the tide is down, and they feed around on the mud flat or beach or wherever. That way they're protected from predation. Now the trick to keeping fiddler crabs is to set them up in a tank that has sand piled high on one end and low on the other end with water halfway up. That allows them to tunnel in and get the tunnel down below the water level, because the tunnel needs to be flooded. They need to be in the water in order to be able to breathe and keep their gills wet and all that stuff. So that's what they do. They dig their tunnel down below the water level, the surface of the water, so that even though they're protected by being underground, they're still in the water. And when the tide is high, the whole tunnel is flooded. When the tide goes down, the top of the tunnel is then exposed, and they come out and they go around and feed. So that's the way it works. You don't have to worry about doing a tide. That's kind of complicated, and it really, unless you just a techie who can't stand themselves, you could do a tidal tank. I think I tried to do one once and gave up on it. The problem with doing a tidal tank is that you can't keep the slope in the sand, because as the water goes down, it levels out the sand. So you wind up with a mess. Anyway, if you'll do that, create a slope, like 45-degree slope or so, right across the tank, one end to the other. You want about 4 inches at the low end and 4 inches from the top at the other end. Don't bring it all the way up to the top, or they will find themselves under your refrigerator. And let me tell you, they're hard to catch. They're really, really fast. And of course, they'll die if they're out very long. I used to have my shop full of them. They'd get out and just run. So do that, 4 inches from the top. If you put a piece of glass at least over that end to make sure they can't climb out, that's a big help. Then you can feed the sand. You put a little bit of like fish food on the sand, and they'll come out and feed on that. They'll get used to not being in the tide. You can keep them going for a long, long time. I've had some that have gone for like 2 years. Now I don't believe that the females tunnel, only the males. And the female then will go into his lair. They'll breed and he'll protect the eggs. And let's see, does she stay there the whole time? I don't think so. I think she comes out. So no, he doesn't protect anything. She comes out, the zygotes go, and they're in the world. They're up swimming. When a crab baby hatches, it's not a crab. It looks more like a microscopic shrimp. And they stay in the upper end of the water column. The blue crab, for example. The blue crab, which is endemic to all of the East Coast from New York all the way into the Gulf. The males come up into fresh water, as do the females. They spawn there, and then the female goes down into salt water, and she gets there right around the time when what's called the sponge, which is the egg mass that she carries under her apron, when that's full and fully developed, they'll hatch it. She'll shed, become soft, they'll hatch out, and they'll just be dispersed into the wild. Now, they go down there because the top 1 inch of ocean water is dense with microfauna. It is the nursery for the sea. Anywhere in the ocean, that's true. That top 1 inch, which gets the most intense sunlight, of course, is where the bulk of the microfauna is. And that's what all the baby fish, the baby shrimp, the baby everything, that's where they go when they hatch. A good example of that is the yellow tang. You've all seen yellow tangs in your aquariums. The yellow tang, along with some other saltwater fish, cannot be raised in captivity. It's impossible because they spawn in open water in very large groups. When they're ready to spawn, they'll go out into deep water, into the ocean, and they'll spawn toward the top, and the eggs will float to the top. They don't sink. They float to the top. 2 days later, the little baby zygotes hatch out, and they begin feeding right there at that layer. As they morph into a fish, they'll begin coming down until they are fully developed as a fish, and then they go to the bottom, where they're able to hide and be protected. At the bottom, Kenneth D. How is Bill D. feeling? Hope he's doing well with everything he's going through with himself and family. If you hear from him, send him my best regards. Prayers, healing, blessings. Kenny, I'm sorry to report that Bill passed away this week on Tuesday. He developed a cancer after his home being destroyed. Let me explain a little bit who I'm talking about. Kenny was active in our club in Venice, Florida, so he knows all the folks from there. Bill was their treasurer, Bill Demery. Bill is my age. He's just a couple of months older than me. Hale, hearty, very healthy man, vigorous, active. He developed cancer suddenly. He started getting pain in his back. Went to have it looked at. They discovered a rampant form of cancer. This was 3 months ago. 2 months ago. They gave him 3 months to live. He made it 2 months. From instigation to being gone. I mean, it just ran like wildfire through his body. He had it checked. He had it checked everywhere. All the cancer institutions, they all said the same thing. There was nothing they could do for him. He went very fast, but he did pass, and we're all deeply saddened by his passing. He was a wonderful man, a great fish keeper, always a big smile. He left his wife Lola, who is, I just got a note from her. I promised to write her something about Bill, and I think she wants to use it in his obituary, so I need to get that off to her. I'll have to do it this evening. I had planned to do it for the funeral, which will be next month, but I think she has other plans for that. So, very sad. We're just really going to miss him terribly. He was really a key part. He and a man named Dennis and I started that club 8 years ago, almost 10 years ago. Reza Gorgie, hello, hello, nice to see you. Reza, I guess, Reza. ABC. Oh dear, oh dear. I didn't want to talk about that, ABC, that's sad. Nightbot is saying check out the website. Do check out the website. Be sure to click down below. Check out the website, father.fish. Father.fish. We're going to be doing a blog on the website. We'll be starting it sometime soon. It will be a good source of information about deep substrates, natural tanks, and the like. It'll be topically available, so you'll be able to get writings or videos that'll be pertinent to your interests. There are, let's see, I've got a video coming out this week on parasites. It's the old video that we're redoing. There was just such a wonderful video, and it never got very many views. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get it in front of a lot more people who will be able to appreciate that. But parasites are something that folks, everybody's worried about parasites. Poor parasites. The video explains a lot, but the thing to keep in mind is that there really is very, very little in the animal kingdom that cannot be considered a parasite. I mean, it's not exactly a term that has a well-defined meaning. It's basically anything that eats anything else. And everything eats something else. So in a real sense, everything is a parasite. And that's really the secret to controlling parasites, is to have a very broad spectrum of biology, a wide diversity of life in your aquarium in order to be able to maintain a balance. To get rid of parasites, if you're going to get rid of parasites, you're either going to poison your entire tank and wipe out things you really don't want to wipe out, or you're going to be in there with a net trying to catch stuff. Where is that light? There's a light behind me. I think I see it. Let me move this. I got a glare back here. I can turn those lights out now. I just moved the betta out of that bowl and put him in the new tank. I'll show you another look at the new tank. I'll tell you what, let's get up close to it because it's really pretty. We set this up, what day was it? Friday, 2 days ago. And you can see it's loaded with plants. I've got one betta in here. I'm going to be putting some other things in. He was in a little bowl, and I thought he'd like life better here. I don't have any snails in here yet. It's only been set up 2 days. I need to get some more fish, snails, and some leaf litter. I don't have any leaf litter. And this is a native sand, an Eastern Shore native sand that's high in mineral content. I've used it before. I kind of like it. It's very fine and stirs up pretty easily. But I've used it and it's really effective. So I've got some in here now. What in the world? That must be a root. What is that? I guess it's a root. Ha. Well, that's all fun. Anyway. Dennis, thank you for the $5 super chat. You don't like Hydra. You know who does like Hydra? Bettas like Hydra. Also, any of the dwarf cichlids eat Hydra. It's very difficult for Hydra to survive in a tank that has fish in it because there's so many things that eat them. Hey, Kaler, nice to see you. Kenny is here. Hi, Kenny. Mr. Golden Arms. Let's see. I need to move down here. Molly's like Hydra too. Silver Creek says yes. Grace has said my guppies love Hydra. Am I planning to move somewhere bigger? Yeah, probably. I'm renting here, so I really can't do the kind of things I'd like to do. If I reach the point where I have the money to do it, I'll buy something. That would have to be pretty far out from where I am. I've managed to figure out how to have a bunch of tanks in here, in this room, so I'm just going to be satisfied with that. I do have tubs that I can set up. I haven't done it yet because I didn't do it in the fall, did not want to do it in the winter. I'm now waiting for the spring, so I'll get tubs out this spring, and I think I've got 7 or 8, so it'll be more than enough. In fact, that's where I'm keeping my plants, outdoors and in a tub. Bathtubs, says Luke. A bathtub, right. Am I going to sell my baby bettas online? I will. They're just about big enough to start taking pictures of them. And I think I'll probably have maybe half a dozen males. So I'll get pictures. I'll try to do that this week. And then I'll put them on the Father.Fish channel. Luke says, yes, he is. Live street plant bundle sale. I've got an amazing deal on plants. Let's see, where did I put? Probably can't find it. The invoice. Oh, maybe that's it. This is an invoice. That's in January. That ain't it. I may not be able to find it. Yeah, I don't think I can. I don't know where I put it. I've got just wonderful. Yeah, I could look it up. I bought 6 different species of bunch plants, all high-end stuff. Really, really pretty. There's a red Ludwigia that it's actually purple. It's just one of the prettiest plants I've seen. You already saw the dwarf sword. That's included. I have 6 different. You're getting 5 different plants, 3 each of 5 different plants. Plus you get a bulb, which is going to be a tiger lotus. Plus you get a either a sword or a crypt. And then you get a couple of extra of the bunches of bunch plants. So it's, well, I don't know, 18, 19. There are 5 plants in each bunch, so that's 40. That's more than that. 5 times 18 is a lot. It's 90. 90. You got 90 plants plus 1, 2, 3, almost 100 plants. It's close to 100 plants for $49.95. It's a heck of a deal. They come off of a very, very high-end farm in Florida that raises the top plants in this country. They are only available to select stores and are a remarkable farm. They are not grown immersed, that is to say, they're not grown out of the water, so you don't have the problem when you put them in the tank of dropping all their leaves and then coming back. That doesn't happen. I've been shipping these in the winter. Now, this is interesting. They ship better cold than warm. Plants tolerate cold temperatures very well. It's not until it gets down to freezing that they die, and if they freeze, they die. If they freeze overnight and the stems freeze, they're gone. You can't save them. So you can't allow them to freeze, but they can get cold, and they do fine. They actually hold up better in the cold. The first shipment or 2 that I sent out, I did not understand that, and it was the dead of winter, and I wanted to protect them, so I put them in with heat packs, and they melted. I wound up reshipping all of that. In fact, there was a fellow in Nome, Alaska, who I lost track of because my system went down and I lost all the information for that first group of customers. So if you are plugged in, whoever you are in Nome, Alaska, my belief is that your plants did not make it. If that's true, please contact me. If it's not true, please contact me, because I'd like to know, and I will ship you more plants if need be. Anyway, Reza saying, thanks for all the great advice. Is potting mix okay to use as substrate? Did not realize there was a difference between potting mix and potting soil. Isn't that interesting? Yes, potting mix is okay. What you need to do, though, is you need to have humic material. The best humic material is sphagnum moss or peat moss or coir, C-O-I-R, that's coconut fiber. Any of those will do. And some kind of high energy material, like a compost material. I use black cow very often. I also will collect muck from a creek or a pond and mix it in with it. Another thing you can mix in with it is clay. Clay is 100% mineral, so it guarantees a very high mineral content. What you do with the clay is put water in it, emulsify it, and then mix that in with the soil. I use either tank water or wild pond water to mix in with the soil in order to create a concrete slurry, like a mud pie, if you know what a mud pie is, or what concrete slurry is. You want it smooth, you want it malleable, but not dripping wet. You don't want water standing on it, because that'll make it impossible to keep the dirt out of the water column when you go to put sand in it. The sand will fall down below the water level. So you don't want water standing on the dirt before you put the sand in. If it is, you need to take some out. You can dip it out with a cup. I've used a net and just dipped a bunch out and squeezed it. You lose a little nutrition that way, but it's critical when you put this together and soak the mud that there is no standing water. Absolutely critical. David King, recreate nature. Absolutely right, David. That's what it's all about, is recreating nature to the best of your ability. And I tell you frankly, it's easy to do. It's really not a problem. Nature is different everywhere you go. However, did you know that the microfauna, the little microscopic animals that are living in living environments, living in the mulch, living in the mulch and the muck in the bottom, they are global. They exist universally. They're not separated by species from continent to continent. The same species of all of these are found around the world. Now, that's not to say you will find every single species and every drop of water from every body of water in the world, because there'll be some in one and not in the other in ponds next to each other. So there's that kind of variation. But species-wide, there is no such thing as an invasive microbe. Or, to put it another way, all of them are invasive everywhere, which is really not true. They're all native and natural everywhere. Easy education. Can Oscar fish disturb the dust-sand combination? Yeah, but you really should not have dust to speak of. The dust will settle down. One of the reasons that I've been comfortable using play sand, which is very dusty, is if you put it in before you put the water in, then put the water in very carefully so you don't stir it up. All of that dust will settle down below the sand, and it provides a surface space for microbe, particularly bacteria. Dennis Engel. We did Dennis's Hydra, didn't we? Dennis's $5 donation. Thank you, Dennis. Nobody loves Hydra. It's sad. It's sad. Poor Hydra. Granny Franny. Says ABS. If there's large organics dump it in a bucket of water, and the large bit should float to the top. Then scoop. Well, you can put egg crate between the soil and sand cap if you have digging fish. Have you done that, Silver Creek? It sounds like an absolutely brilliant fix for diggers because it protects the dirt to a certain extent. It's not going to protect it absolutely because the fish will swish its tail and it'll swish it up anyway. But it should help. What I like to do is put an extra inch or two of sand in a tank that's going to have Central Americans, big Central American cichlids. All the big Central Americans are pit spawners, and they all will dig down to rock. They will dig all the way down till they can't dig anymore. So it becomes very difficult to really be able to keep fish like that in a dirted tank. I've found if you really want to keep those kinds of fish, you do one in a tank. That's the Oriental approach. The Chinese, Japanese approach to keeping fish is to have a species tank with, if it's a large fish like an arowana or an abba or some other fish that gets 2 to 3 feet long, a flower horn, you have one fish in the tank. We don't do much of that here, but it is probably the best way to keep a very large fish. It's just have one, unless you have a 200-gallon tank, then you can do more. But to do that, you can't have two. You must have a minimum of 3. And at that, 2 of them are going to gang up on the third one. So you need more, minimum 5. And then you get to 7 to 10. And 7 to 10 is more the right range for a 125 and up. That gives you enough fish to be able to break up the aggression. There may always be one hen-pecked fish that everybody beats up on. That happens. If it happens, take him out. And keep doing that until you got one left. The bully. It doesn't help to take the bully out, because he just gets replaced by a different bully. But generally, if one fish is getting badly beaten up, remove him, put him in a hospital tank or in another tank by himself, and the community will be okay. Another thing you can do if you have a lot of hardscape in there is move the rocks around, move the driftwood, create different environments. If you start getting a lot of aggression, that especially works well with Malawi cichlids. If you got a lot of aggression, move the rocks around. Now the Malawis are a fish that you can put a larger number in a smaller tank, although I would never go below a 55 with Malawi cichlids, the umbunas, the peacocks, all of those really stunning fish. Not below that. And you'll be able to maintain them. Caesar Mayorga has subscribed. Thank you. Thank you, Caesar. Let's see, we got Bob Curran and Steve Lockey. What do we have here? Now we're at 42 minutes. Parasites. My brother-in-law is married to one. She's 24 years younger than him. Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, he made his bed, didn't he? That's probably why. Cartagena, Colombia. Thank you so much for sharing the knowledge. I now have 2 tanks with mangrove sand following your tips. Is that brackish, Francisco? The mangrove sand is the richest biology of any sand anywhere. It's sand and mud. There's a lot of detritus in there from the leaves falling in and so forth. So mangrove, if you live near a mangrove swamp, marsh, muck, whatever, collect sand from there for your saltwater or brackish water fish. It will be the best you can do. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. Oh, let's see. Silver Creek is trying to bag his neighbor's 55 chip, but he wants a low boy in. So he's got to cut it down to the chip. Shaquille Sock. Turn you blue. School fish tank. Interesting question. Ray Smokey. Hello, Race. David King. Dirty soil sounds like a natural buildup of nutrients. Yeah, and minerals. That's exactly what it is. but it forms a soil if you have the right kind of environment, which is sand on top of it, so it percolates, then it will create a natural cycled foundation that will allow all of the detritus, the fish waste, plant waste, and so forth, food waste, to precipitate through the sand into that, to be converted or broken down into its mineral content and taken up then by plants. So it creates a full cycle. And that's the whole idea with these plants, with these tanks. Like this one, that's what this one does. There was a period where I was using it as a mother tank. That is to say, I was pulling plants out of it to sell or set up other tanks. And I found after doing that for about 6 months, it stopped being productive because I was taking so much out that was not being replaced. That was 6 or 7 years ago. So I stopped doing that, and since then I haven't done that. More lately, I've taken a few of the big Sagittarius out because I really would like to have them in other tanks, and they tend to get really thick in here. But I'm putting other tanks in, other plants in to replace them. Greetings from the Netherlands, from Rotterdam. Thank you very much for giving us advice. You're very welcome, Al S. Guppy Girl. Hello, Guppy Girl. Oh, yes. A pet supermarket currently has, there used to be $1 a gallon sale. I don't know if it's Petco. Petco is doing their sale on tanks. Really, really good prices on tanks. If you're looking for tanks and can spring for a new one at basically half price, get over there and do that. Right now we have plants, substrate, supplement, everything you need to get started with a brand new tank. We have the leaf mulch, the leaf litter. We've got the whole bag, the whole can of worms, the whole enchilada. Except we do not ship sand or soil because it's too expensive to do it. It's so much cheaper for you to be able to dig out soil from your backyard, sand from the beach or creek. You can get it free and it's perfectly good. Just add the supplement to it. That'll guarantee the longevity of the soil, that it'll be able to provide nutrients long enough for that cycle I was just talking about to be established. That does not happen quickly. One of the complaints that the gravel people have or have had with sand is that it takes too long for everything to precipitate through it. And that's absolutely true. It absolutely does. It takes at least a year for all of those precipitants to get through there into the soil, get broken down and begin to be taken up. So a tank that's 2, 3, 4, 5 years old is highly productive. Within a year, not so much. So you need the supplements in order to be able to carry that soil through until the natural process can begin to provide those nutrients by itself. Now, what that also means is you never take anything out of the tank. You don't siphon it out. You don't clean the dirt. You don't take the muck out. You have enough sand in there for that detritus to precipitate down into it. And if it's not, if it's sitting on the sand, you need to add another inch of sand because the sand's not deep enough for the biological activity that's going on. In other words, you're producing more detritus than the system is able to handle, so you just increase the size of the system to be able to do that, and that works brilliantly. Do Apodogeiton have bulbs? Yes. ABS. Apodogeiton is a bulb plant. It's a remarkable plant. It is a plant, the reason their Apodogeitons are bulbs is because they live in forest rain pools. That is to say, in the rainy season, in the forests of Central Africa, the Ivory Coast, which is the bulge. When it rains, depressions in the forest fill up with water. These bulbs are down in the hard packed clay dirt that the water is filling up. When they get wet, they burst open. They begin growing out of that bulb just like a tulip. They grow just like a tulip out of the bulb, and much the same way for much the same reason. They grow up, they flower, and the flowers, of course, produce seeds that are blown by the wind to other ponds, where they settle down and begin to grow. Those bulbs start very tiny. By year 3, they're fully developed. The bulb does not, to the best of my understanding, the bulb does not divide. It depends on flowering in order to propagate. You can't propagate the bulb by cutting it. I've never seen two bulbs. Now, there are plenty of other plants that grow multiple bulbs around the central bulb. And maybe they do. Maybe it's simply that I have not seen it. I would frankly be surprised if they don't. But as I said, I haven't seen it. So maybe somebody else can be helpful with that. But in any case, they grow very quickly, and in the season they have bloomed. They have been the flowers been fertilized. They've sent their seeds adrift. The water evaporates out, and the leaves and stems die off, and they're back to that bulb, which maintains the spark of life until the rain comes, and they flourish again. So that's all about Apodogeiton. Daniken is here. Hello, Daniken. Good to see you. Would I recommend a cichlid, says Jennifer. For beginner fish, I'm thinking about getting some. Yeah, absolutely. The very best cichlid that you can get in a new tank is an angelfish. Now, I know there are people who are going to say things about that, but it is simple, it is majestic, they are hardy, they're colorful, they're a remarkable looking fish. They do very, very well in a beginner tank. They will get big enough to eat all your neons. So you need simply to be aware of that. It'll happen. But by the time they get 3 to 4 to 5 inches, which is going to be a year to 2 years down the road, by then you're going to want to spawn them. And there is nothing more wonderful than spawning angels. So, don't get 1, get 3. 3 to 5. I recommend 3. That gives you a pretty good guarantee that you're going to wind up with a pair. and plan on spawning them in a year to 2 years. When they get big enough and pair off, they'll tell you when they're ready. And then you want to move them into a tank all by themselves so they can do that. At that point, call me and we'll take the next step together. How do you plant house plants in an aquarium, such as pothos, says Kenny? Well, there are a lot of different devices, a lot of ways to do it. I was looking at someone's bamboo forest. They said they had a bamboo forest. So I thought, what in the world is that? Well, it turns out that the gentleman cut dried bamboo, big ones, like 5-inch bamboo, in half lengthwise and made a trough out of them, like a rain spout trough, blocked up each end, put soil in it, put plants in it, and perched it on top of his fish tank with a pump that runs a dribble of water from one end to the other and back down in the tank. Remarkable. The plants are growing in that. Now that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to hang a pot or some other device on the side of the tank and attach the plant to that container or that device. Just reminds me, I've got some things that I can use. They're pot holders for orchids that hang on the side of frames. I got a whole bag of them somewhere. I need to dig them out. They would be perfect because you want to hold the leaves up above the water level and let the roots grow down into the water. That's all you need to do. Keep the leaves. If you cut a stem off with a couple of nodules on it, 1 or 2 nodules in the water, and then 1 or 2 with leaves or stems above the water, attach that to something so it stays in that position, and it'll grow like a weed. It'll grow all by itself. Jennifer saying, what do you mean when you said if the water is too high, the fiddler crabs would end up under our refrigerator? They're escape artists. If you have 1 inch to 2 inches from the surface that they're walking on to the top of the tank, they will climb up the corner of the tank and they'll get out. And when they get out, the cat will get them, but you might not. And they're super fast. They will hide. Refrigerators they love because they're dark. They're not wet particularly, unless they can get into the tray and there's some moisture there. They're dark. They tend to have a little bit of moisture. They can survive for a while. Eventually, they'll die. But you just want to make sure they can't get out. That's all I was really talking about. Which sand is good, river or ocean, for freshwater tanks? Beach is okay. Ocean is not for freshwater. Ocean sand, wet sand, sand from the ocean, is exactly what you want for a saltwater tank. That's the substrate. The more you can dig down into it, the richer it's going to be. But you can't use it. You can put it in a freshwater tank. You're going to have a substantial die-off of most of the biological material, which will create problems you don't really need to deal with. Beach sand, however, is washed by the rain. Now you want it up above the tide where it doesn't get wet routinely. A super high tide may wet it, but rain will rinse it. So sand from up above the tide level, if there's a dune level far enough up that the tide doesn't naturally come to do it, it's not going to have salt in it. You can use that perfectly safely. It'll be a little effective. The tiny amount of salt that might be in it will be beneficial. It won't be a problem at all. Can you do this with a blackwater tank with tannins? Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, it really lends itself to it. Now, I've had tannin tanks. I've had blackwater tanks. There are only certain fish that thrive, and that curiously, the Aponogeton thrives in blackwater tanks or in heavily tannined tanks. So it's distasteful to snails and other plant-eating animals. So it's one that you can do quite well with in a special kind of environment. Neil Curry, I wish you could see the tank you've inspired. It brings me a lot of joy. Neil, if you will come over to our Discord channel, you'll be able to post pictures and short videos of your tank, and we would love to see it. Please do that. If it gives you joy, you may share the joy, and I assure you it will be shared. So please do that. Race Smoky. Do you know, will 2 to 3 day old albino cories eat copepods? Can't find any kind of live food here. Have tablets of spirulina, but don't know. Younglings are so small. You can feed. You can cook spinach and make a mush out of it and put small amounts of that in. They'll be all over that. Spirulina you can do. Any kind of green vegetable. Zucchini. They'll eat zucchini. You want to parboil it though. You want it really kind of soft and mushy for them, and then kind of spread it on the bottom. Don't do a lot. If you do a lot, you'll foul everything. But they will eat that, and that'll be something they can grow up on. Uneaten food. I have algae on my sand. Do I have to clean it? No. Also some uneaten fish food. That's why you have algae on your sand, because you're overfeeding. If you have food laying in the bottom of your tank, you are overfeeding. There should never be food laying in the bottom of the tank. Hey, Isabella, delighted to see you. Jeff Kane, Jacob Pritchett. Thanks. Plants seem to be doing poorly unless they do a water change every month. Been trying to get away from water changes. You probably don't have enough nutrients, Jacob. So the water is bringing in new nutrients that get depleted, and you're on that kind of Ferris wheel. Add leaf mulch. You can also add vegetable material, other kinds of spinach, for example, zucchini, for example, and mash it up, mush it good, so it gets down in there. That's not going to foul the tank if you don't overdo it. Can I use soil and sand with goldfish, since they dig up the substrate? They won't go deep. You want an extra inch or two of sand. You can do it, and you can grow very hardy, sturdy plants that they're not going to tear up, like the big Sagittarius, like big sword plants. I have all of those kinds of things available. I think I've got some listed. Now, let me suggest something to you. If you want special kinds of plants, you can buy the plant package and request certain plants. And I will, if I don't have them, I'll get them. If I can't, I'll let you know. But you can request certain plants, and I will do that as substitutions. It's not a problem at all. I've got a pretty good variety of plants here, and I have, as I mentioned, I have access to many hundreds of species of high quality plants. So keep that in mind if there are certain things, like for a goldfish tank. If you want plants that are going to survive goldfish predation, make a list of that. Now, I cannot provide plants that will survive spixy snails or silver dollars. Sorry, there ain't no such critter. So, best I can do with that is plastic. Although, I will say, I have used Aponigeton with spixies, and they haven't messed with them. Whether silver dollars will or not, I haven't tried it. I don't know. I know they're inveterate plant eaters, one of the worst. What else is here? A few fishes started scratching. Somebody brought this up earlier, Max. Glad you brought it up. I wanted to talk about it. Max Newham. Hi, a few fishes started scratching against surfaces and sometimes keeping their fins tight to their body. Is it something with parasites? Thanks. Probably yes. They will do that with ick. Ick will not be visible right away. The parasite gets underneath the scales. It goes through the slime of the fish, the slime coat, burrows under a scale, and feeds on the fluids in the fish's flesh. The waste comes back out through the tunnel that it created getting in there, and that's the white spot you see. So that parasite has been in there for a while before the spot is even visible. So that scratching could very well be early onset of ick parasites. There are other parasites that a fish will try to scratch off, and some they do. They're parasites that are superficial, that is, they attach to the outside of the fish. And those can be scratched off, not easily, I might add, but they can be. Typically, if you see parasites on the outside of a fish, and that's usually a worm or a hard-shelled critter, you can take the fish out, pinch it with a tweezer, and pull it off. And then just put a tiny dot of what am I trying to say? Of a bactericide right on that spot so it doesn't become infected. For internal parasites specifically for ick, simply raise the temperature to 86. Now, if you don't know if it's ick or not, raise the temperature to 86. I recommend 87 because the thermometer might be off a degree and it won't work at 85. So anything under 90 is not going to hurt the fish at all. You're going to have it up there for 2 to 3 days, and if you have by then visible white spots, they will drop off, and you'll see after 2 or 3 days they'll be gone, and it'll be clear. For other kinds of parasites that attack fish, there are various medications that people swear by. If you're going to do that, take the fish out of the tank, put it in a hospital tank. A hospital tank is a bare tank with an air stone. Not a sponge filter, an air stone. Bare tank, no substrate. Brand new water, not old water, new water. Put the fish in that. Put the treatment in that. In 2 to 3 days, the fish should be cured. You can leave it in there for up to a week, but what you want to do after the fish is cured is reduce the chemical by doing water replacements. You take it, unless you can put charcoal in there, like a charcoal in a little box filter, that will pull the chemicals out of the water. And then you can put the fish back in your tank. When you do, make sure it's been clean and clear for a few days. Do not feed that fish the entire time it's in the hospital tank. No food of any kind. If you do, you run the very high risk of creating a bacterial bloom that will attack the fish and create a worse problem than you started with. So, no food. This is about bristlenose. Jennifer, what species of starfish can I keep in a 10-gallon tank? Well, I tell you, the brittle star is probably the easiest one to keep because it moves quickly and it'll eat everything. It'll eat fish food. It'll eat anything. Try to get little tiny ones. They get big. If you see a rock in the store where you're getting it, or if you're collecting them wild, try to find a rock that has little tiny ones on it. Put that in the tank. You can also do them with fish. They're not going to hurt the fish. There are other starfish that may well. The main problem with starfish is they tend to die. They tend to be difficult to keep alive. McDaniel's Motorworks. Thank you, McDaniel's. Appreciate your subscription. Cesar Mayorga, thank you for your subscription. Let's see, what else? What do we got here? DZ Saber. Rebuilt my aquariums when I had to move. One tip, keep some water from the tank in a gallon jug. You can also use some of the substrate in the new tank. These will seed your new tank. Absolutely. When I moved this tank, I dropped the water level down to about 1 inch. And then two big strong guys carried it, put it in my van on a carpeted part of the van. And I got it all the way from Florida up here, set it up, put water in it, and it was fine. And it sat like that for at least a week with just 1 inch of water in it. I had some fish in it that didn't make it. The only one that did, well, that's not quite true. I had little Formosa, which is a live bear from Florida. They made it, and I've got somewhere in here, I see him back there, an albino bushy nose. He made it. But and all the plants, of course, made it. Now, the bushy nose, or something, chewed the plants down to a nub, but they all grew back. Oh dear, Confucius Say, 75 gallon, with 3 Uaru and small MBU, no plants. I noticed the Waru with some gray patches in the light. Should I treat the whole tank for parasites? It's probably not a parasite. It probably is a bacteria. gray patches, it's almost certainly a bacteria. What I would do is take them out and treat them in a hospital tank. You're going to have better luck doing that. The minute you start treating in your home tank, you're killing off all of the life in that tank and creating a sterile situation that has a lot of dead material in it. So you wind up with a worse problem than you started with. I love waru. An absolutely incredible fish. They can be a real bother. I mean, they can be very difficult. They want to be kept quite warm, 85 degrees plus. You've got to keep them warm, or they tend to get this bacterial infection. So what you might try first is make sure you've got that temperature up to 85, 86. If you don't, get it up there and see if it improves. I have had them improve just by raising the temperature. If it doesn't, then remove them into a hospital tank with a high temperature, when 85 to 90 degrees. 90 is not too warm for them. And then treat accordingly. An antibacterial, probably the dyes are the safest. I like aquaflavin if you can get it. Aquaflavin works extremely well, as does malachite green, methylene blue less so. They're purple dyes. I've not used them. I can't vouch for them one way or the other. Let's see, we're back a bit. Moonboats is here. Hey, Moonboats. Moonboats, I have lurked on a couple of your live streams for a little while, and I have found them so obtuse, to use a word, that I haven't wanted to come in and be part of it. So, but I'm hanging out. I'm checking it out. And the minute I find a conversation that I'm willing to get engaged in, I'll jump in. Happy to do it. Look forward to it. A lot of conversations I just ain't going to participate in. Melanie Karen. Hello, Melanie. I'll give you a wrench. Mountaintop Fish. The big metal shop class tanks that you and I have, how old do you think they are? Well, let's see. They stopped. When did glass start being made? Merle Cohen produced the first frameless tanks in the early 90s. So up until the 80s, the metal frame were still being produced. So the newest ones are going to be about 40 years old. I've got a few little ones. I had big ones that I just couldn't keep. There's a 5 and a 2. I think I may have 1 or 2 more. I've got a few. I just kept some little ones. Yeah, they're hard to come by. They are like gold. They're nice tanks. When I first met Henry Hall, that was in the late 70s. He was rebuilding metal frame tanks. And what he would do is, he didn't put silicone in. He would heat the frame, the metal, with a blowtorch. He would heat it, and then he would set the tank on that corner, and he would have in his cauldron, he had a cauldron, he would have melted roofing tar with varniline in it to keep it from hardening, because roofing tar gets brittle. So he would heat a chunk of it. He'd buy one of these big round, I don't know what they're called, big round spool of roofing tar, chop pieces of it off, put it in his cauldron, which had, of course, a flame under it, melt it, put a little bit of varniline in it to keep it from hardening. And then he would use his tongs, pick up the cauldron, and pour that into the seam. And he'd go around and he would do all 8 seams that way. Took a whole day to do a tank. All 8 seams. Leave it up until it hardened, then flip it and do the next one. So, not talking about meta frame. What are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about that brass tank I had. Henry Hall gave me that tank. That was a slate bottom. It was about a 5-gallon. Slate bottom, inch thick slate with brass angle iron. It was like 1/2-inch brass angle iron that was bolted to the slate with balls on each of the 4 corners. That was made in roughly 1895. So it was from that period. I kept it for many, many years. I had a friend who rebuilt it with silicone. Cleaned it, rebuilt it, refreshed all the brass in it. And then the man who owns Zoo Med, this was almost 10 years ago, was building a museum, and his rep bugged me for 2 years to donate that tank to ZooMed, to the aquarium, which is in Berkeley, California, I think. I finally agreed to do it as a trade for $1,000 worth of product, which he did the next day, I think. I had a stack of lights and other stuff for months. But I did it because I didn't want to die and have it thrown on a trash pile. I wanted it protected for eternity. So he got with the tank a prospectus on the history of the tank. It was given by Henry Hall's father to him when he was 5 years old in 1895. And he kept it until he was 82, gave it to me, and he then died soon after that. That I was, how old was I? 40. I was 40 years old, about 1980, when I got it. So I kept it for 35 years, and then gave it to ZooMed, to their museum. And I've gotten reports on it since then that it has a place of honor. So it's not the most spectacular tank from that period, but it has a rich history, and it's certainly worth protecting. Is that the one you're talking about? Is that what you're talking about? Let's scroll down here a little. What time is it? 7:30. Let's see. I did the Waru thing. Oh, keep me posted on those, Waru, please. Come over to Discord and please do some posts, and I'll keep up with you on that because I'm very interested in that fish. A friend of mine, who's quite a good fish keeper in Venice, Florida, he's a biologist with the state of Florida. He got panda waru. I think he got 8 or 10 of them. And he kept them in a big cube about a 200-gallon cube. For several years, got them up to 6 to 8 inches. One by one they died. They never spawned for him. So he didn't figure it out. They're a tough little fish. How do you get rid of calcium buildup? Calcium buildup is caused by water splashing or by evaporating and not refilling. So the best way to not get it is to keep it in suspension. So you want not to be splashing, and you want to top off, if you've got evaporation, top off routinely. Don't let it get down and dry out for days and weeks on end. Yeah, Luke says you don't want to keep it wet, right? It's a buffer. That's right. It absolutely is. It's holding the pH up. So it's critical to have it. Whoa. I got a brand new mouse and it's very touchy. Let's see, where are we? Lost track. Rich pelts. My FatherFish's plants, mine. We're perfect. No melting at all. Wonderful. Yeah, they're doing really well. I've been shipping all summer. The first one, all winter. The first 1 or 2 batches, I put heat packs in, and I shouldn't have done it. I talked to the my farm about that, and they recommended to me what to do. What's the most common parasite? The most common parasite. Oh dear God. The most common parasite. Probably ick. Truthfully. I was going to make a smart comment like fish keepers, but I would say ick is probably the most common parasite. It's certainly the one more people have trouble with. And curiously, it's the easiest one in the world to deal with. Now, I have run into people who have said, oh, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But they had little tiny fish in 100-gallon tanks. You ever tried to heat a 100-gallon tank up to 90 degrees? Near about impossible to do. It's a very difficult plant to get, or rather tank, to get that warm, and you tend not to want to do it if you got a whole lot of stuff in there. So I think that's the difficulty, frankly. I have yet to meet an ick parasite I couldn't knock down at 86 degrees. I've heard tell they're out there, and maybe they are, but I've yet to run into one. Prove me wrong. Send me your tropical ick parasites. I'll find a way to kill them. What is this? Melanie Karen, 25-year-old women. What is he talking about? Easy education. Let's see. Mark Raymond. Thank you, Mark, for your membership. Posted a picture of my 2-week-old dirted tank on Deep Substrate Discord. I saw it. I love it. It's a wonderful tank. Do I recommend sea cucumbers, or are they too difficult to care for? They're very simple, Jennifer. They tend to be fairly messy, and when they die, they're big enough to foul the water. So I tend not to. They're a big slug, is what they are. They're a cucumber-sized slug. They don't do much. They eat everything, and they're a little risky. And when they poop, it's a vast cloud. So I just don't recommend them. I don't like them. I've had them. I find they tend to be messy. a lot of the most common things that you can find at the beach are not particularly good in a fish tank. And that's one among them. Don't know why that is, but it's really true. Crabs. Crabs are another one. Crabs is crabs. Crabs are going to be crabby. Any kind of crab. Not quite true, but virtually. The green algae crab, what's that called? Been too long. They have, if you look at their pincers, it's a good way to know whether the crab is going to be all right in your tank. Look at the tips of the pincers. If they're sharp, they're a fish eater. They're a fish flesh terror. You don't want them. If they're flat like pancakes, they're an algae eater. That's perfect. So you want crabs that have flat pancake tips on their pincers. Emerald, thank you. Emerald crabs, right. What's this? Somebody talking about. Let me go to the bottom and work back. Yeah, Luke has two of them in his. That's Horizon Broadband. He's got a beautiful saltwater tank, about 10 gallons, set up as a natural tank. We're going to be doing that here this spring. It'll be another couple of weeks. I've got a tank designated. Let me show you. I've just set up 2 tanks over here. Can you see them? Maybe you can see them. One on the, there's a lot of stuff in the way. The one on the bottom has substrate in it. That was the original substrate video, which didn't work, so I came back and did it again with this one. But that's going to be a freshwater tank. The tank on top is going to be a saltwater tank. Not brackish, probably, but saltwater. So we'll see, because I want clowns. And that's a 15-gallon tank. The top frame broke. I'm going to try to clean it and see if I can do it as a rimless. It's shallow enough to get away with it. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I can't wait to see it too. Let's see. Jeff Kane. I don't know what he's referring to. Chick of the Sea used the garlic temperature combo on egg. The purpose of the garlic is to provide a means of preventing bacteria from infecting the wound. It also is a food source, so you don't want to put liquid garlic. I used to do that until I discovered it wasn't accomplishing anything. You want to use fresh crushed garlic and treat it as food. You want the fish to eat it. So when you're feeding it, do not feed anything else. Only that. And it will control internal parasites, internal bacteria, and will also act as a bactericide for the fish for any external wounds or the like. Confucius said, I've tried the pond of water 3 times, they never made it. No one's had good success keeping them and not catching a disease. Yeah, this fellow kept them for at least 2 years. And just gradually, they didn't make it. I think they're a fish that needs to be kept extremely warm and probably in very low pH and may require variation in pH from high to low. A lot of these Amazon fish go through seasonal changes, and we don't have an easy way to do that. I mean, how do you exactly go from a pH of 8 to a pH of 5 back to a pH of 8 in a year? I wouldn't begin to know how to do that. And I think it'd be a huge risk to do it. You could do it gradually and slowly, but boy. And I don't even know that that's the issue. You know what we ought to do? We ought to talk to Amazon, the Amazon Research Project. I don't think they have Waru there. They're Brazil. But they might. They have discus. There's a good possibility they do. Let's talk to them and see if they have any experience with Waru. Easy education. Rich pelts. I think I've got everything. I'm amazed. What plecos are good for eating algae? Because every time we get a tank, it gets algae. And so we need fish that clean off algae off our 10-gallon tank. Jennifer. I don't get algae, Jennifer. Do a deep substrate and you won't get algae. You want plants in there, a lot of plants. Not one or two, 15 or 20. In a 10-gallon tank, you should have 30 stem plants minimum. You should have a couple of big plants. The tank should be minimum half, volume-wise, half full of plants. That doesn't mean packed tight half. That means that when you look in it, virtually every area has plants in it. You want probably in terms of what you're doing, a lot of plants. And the reason is every tank produces nutrients. You want the plants to get the nutrients, all of them. You also want to keep those nutrients out of the water column. So that's why the sand cap. The sand cap keeps all of the nutrients and the dirt down in the dirt below the sand, where it can be useful and helpful, and not up in the water column. So the GH, if you will, the general hardness of the water should be very low. The general hardness in the soil should be very high. And if you're doing it right, it will be. The plants will pull nutrients out of the water column as well as up through their roots. Once the water column is depleted, then they'll begin feeding through the roots on that substrate. So if you're getting algae, it's because there's something else you're not doing, and the algae is simply being opportunistic and frankly is saving your tank from fouling, because if you did not have the algae, the tank would foul. So be thankful the algae is growing. It's not the problem. It is the solution to the problem. It may not be the solution you want, so find a better solution. Don't try to get rid of that solution, because it'll just create a worse problem. I hope you catch my understanding. You want to deal with what's causing the algae. That will control the algae. And you deal with that by using higher order plants, because they pull nutrients out of the water in front of the algae. The algae will die off if the higher order plants are there in sufficient abundance to keep the nutrient level in the water down. Kevin Rosenberg. Angelfish are absolutely beautiful. They absolutely are. It's really a perfect starter cichlid. It really is. And it'll move you along in the hobby, because it'll be big enough you'll need to get a bigger plant or something. Demetrius, thank you for your subscription. And Iron Joke, thank you for the subscription. Iron Joker, that is. It's too tiny to... I don't know. Ooh, what else? What else we got here? Melanie Moran, hello. Hello, Melanie, sorry. Never underestimate the number of plants you should have in the tank. Amen to that. The Dutch planted tanks, 75% by volume of the tank of the water is plants. I'll give you an idea. DZ Saber is saying that's the mistake I made in my new tank. Not enough plants and poor light. Bought the wrong one by accident. Not feeding the fish, but the algae is happy, and so is the pleco and snails. Yeah, right. Algae's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Don't think of it as a bad thing. If it's something you don't want, then provide an alternative. Just killing it doesn't solve a problem. It doesn't help. It hurts, in point of fact. Makes it worse. Jeff Kane is going to be back later. We may be gone. I don't know when you'll be back. What time is it? 7:40. We got about 15 minutes. How long will the tank last if the power goes out? This tank, until a week ago, when I put a bubbler in it, an air stone, and a water pump at that end, which craps out after a few hours, so it's going to wind up with another air stone. I did it to get circulation. Prior to that, I had a sponge filter in it 6 months ago. So it went for 6 months with no filtration at all. Lots of plants. And I did not put the air in because there was a problem. There really was no problem. I just wanted to be sure, because it's a long tank, that I was actually, with very few fish in it, that I was actually getting circulation, that the water was moving through it and not creating still pockets. Because that'll happen too. Particularly if you don't have many fish. They're not moving the water much, and so it'll just kind of sit there. And that can go bad on you. That can create an anaerobic pocket. Didn't happen, but I didn't want to risk it either. Cure for the infection called angelfish AIDS. I don't know what that is. The biggest single problem that angelfish get, other than it, is fin rot, and that's probably what you're referring to. They have very delicate flowing fins, like a betta. The problem is, with their fins, there's no blood circulation in the fin. So the body of the fish is not able to carry white blood cells to an infection to stop the infection. So the fin has no way to protect itself. Once it gets an infection, it just eats it up until it gets back close enough to the body that there's a little bit of blood flow going in right at where the fin meets the body, and that'll stop the infection. In the meantime, the fish has lost its fins and will probably die from that. So the solution, obviously, is to kill the bacteria. And the best way to do that is to take the fish out, put it in treated water, and let that treatment kill the bacteria. There are homeopathic cures. I think, frankly, the medications that are available for treating that kind of bacterial infection. It's usually called fungus. And the reason it's called fungus is because the bacterial infection creates dead organic matter, the fin dying, which fungus then attacks. And the fungus kind of rooms out. So you see the fungus, you don't really see the bacteria. But the underlying cause is bacteria. All of the fungicides that are sold are in fact bactericides. Getting rid of the fungus doesn't cure the problem, doesn't get rid of it. Getting rid of the fungus cures the problem. You can wipe the fungus off. It's not attached to the fish. It's sitting on the dead matter. You can brush it off with a little brush. You can wipe it off with your finger. You can shake it off. The fungus is not on the fish's body, it's on the dead flesh. So getting rid of that bacteria is what you have to do if you see fungus. See, on a bacteria side. Again, the dyes work. There are kind of flavins that'll work. You can buy any kind of medication that's available over the counter for human beings under prescription. I used to have people coming into my shop to buy prescription drugs that I was selling over the counter for fish. And I wouldn't sell it because it was obvious what they were doing. I didn't know whether it would get me in trouble or not. Probably not, frankly. But it's not a prescription item. It's the dosage. It's not a prescribed dosage. You know, if you're smart enough to do it, you don't need to tell the pet shop clerk what you're using it for. Somebody is here. Why is my phone ringing, and which phone is ringing? And what is that? Luke, what's going on? I don't know what that is. I don't see anything. Let's see if it's... Oh, he's got my mouse now. Go for it. Is it... Down at the bottom. Come voice on and tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. Oh, okay. We got somebody coming in. You click leave. I don't know what that is. Oh. Now I know what that is. A battery-operated air pump, just in case power goes out and came in handy. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that was a mistake. All right. Aquatic desert. What? Saying a grenade may work. What? You guys. Best way to get rid of black-beard algae. Oh, well, that. The best way to get rid of black-beard algae, and this works 100% of the time. I absolutely guarantee it. It will guaranteed work every single time. Fall in love with it. It'll disappear. Black-beard algae is there for a season and then it's gone. It is not a permanent visitor. Yeah, flagfish will eat it. There are a number of things that'll eat it. What are they called? Clown loaches will eat it. What kind of cichlids? Rams. Rams are a great little cichlid. They're touchier. They're a little harder to keep because they have to be kept warm. An angel you can keep in 50-degree water. They will tolerate near anything. They're easy to keep, hard to kill. Unless your tank is so foul, everything in it is rotten. In which case, you need to straighten up your act. But angels, I do recommend angel as a first cichlid. There are other things you can do. You can do like keyhole cichlids, chocolate cichlids, all of that sort of stuff. But I don't recommend it. They tend to be more pricey for one thing. They're a little touchier. The angel will live in mud and be beautiful and appreciated. Cat Midwell, hello Cat, nice to see you. I just gave you a wrench, you're going to turn blue. ASDF, cure for infection, angelfish AIDS. I assume that's what you were referring to. ASDF. Wicked Insanity is now blue. Jack Gat, love bristles. I do too. I need to get some more bristles. I'm going to be getting some bristles. Oh yeah. Sarah Bright says, I wish I was keeping fish this way in high school. Chemistry would have made so much more sense. And biology class for that matter. It's really true, isn't it? Melanie, how long will a tank last if the power goes out? I didn't really answer that question. Depends how it's set up, but it can last indefinitely. If you've got a situation where you are severely overstocked, then the best thing to do is get some of the fish out of that and set them up in trays, tubs, something else. Just spread it out. What you want to look at is the surface area because that's where oxygen exchange occurs. So if you've got a deep tank, like a 2-foot deep tank, that's got 50 fish in it, let's say it's a 100-gallon tank with 50 fish in it, take a third of that water out, put it in a tub, like a bathtub, any kind of container, largest container you've got with the most surface area, 4 to 6 inches of water, and put half of those fish in that. You can break it down even more. It's the surface area that's critical, not the volume of water. So if you run into that problem, you want to spread them out, spread out the water surface, spread out the fish among them, and that will that'll prevent them from dying from oxygen deprivation. Another thing you can do is sit there and swish the water hour after hour after hour after hour. That gets a little weary. But generally speaking, it's not a problem. A bigger problem is keeping the water warm. And for that, you may need to find a way to heat water and float hot water containers. Don't pour hot water in. Float hot water containers. That'll work a lot better. What about flatworms? Should we eat them? You can, but you're going to be standing in line because there are all kinds of other critters in your tank that are going to want to eat them. Flatworms, like Hydra, are a parasite that larger fish thrive on, including catfish. Any kind of catfish is going to take care of flatworms. All right. My algae is pearly. Oh, well. Hey, Rick, how are you? Good to see you. Let's see. Somebody deleted Jack Gat's comment. Well, that should not have been deleted. Who did that? Don't do that. I'm going to take your privileges away if you do that again. I can't tell who did it now because I can see it. Pin report remove, put using time out user. As managing moderator, standard moderator. Jack Cat, have I gotten you as a moderator? I may not. Let's see. What is this? ASD, if it causes them to create a bunch of slime and they can't swim anymore. What are you referring to? Oh, angelfish aims. I don't know about that. I never heard of that one. Create so much slime they can't swim. It's curious because a slime, of course, is a protective coating, and what tends to increase slime coat is salt. Increasing the salt content of the water will cause the animal to increase its slime coat in order to keep the salt away from the body where it can be absorbed in to the body. There are certain saltwater fish that have very, very, very thick, heavy slime coats. The mandarin goby is a good case in point. You pick one up, it'll be dripping in slime. I don't know about a slime disease, though, other than getting rid of slime. I mean, there are diseases that consume slime, but producing so much it can't swim, I've never heard of that. Come on over to Discord and see if you can share that with us. I'd be very interested in knowing about it. And I'm going to give you a wrench, and they die. Don't know about that. I don't know, unless it could be a toxin. It could be a toxin in the water, and it's reacting to the toxin by producing a continuous slime coat to try to separate itself from the toxin. That would make sense. I've never seen an angel, or any fish for that matter, produce so much slime that it couldn't function. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying that's a new one to me. But it would kind of make sense that it could do that, I guess. I don't know what toxin, because typically toxins react so quickly that the animal doesn't have time to protect itself from it. So I don't know exactly what would cause that. What are we doing time-wise here? We're down to a minute and a half. Denroy Ashmead. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Aquatic Desert. Uploaded a vid a few days ago cutting beautiful andra leaves that had some BBA. Was that the wrong move? BBA is an algae. It's the same issue. You get BBA because you have excess nutrients in the water and inadequate higher order plants. The BBA is going to grow on the edges of dying leaves, dying plants, not fresh green new ones. So yeah, you can get rid of it by trimming, but you're not getting, you're not getting rid of what caused the BBA to start growing in there. You need more plants to be able to overwhelm it, to prevent it from gaining a foothold. BB8 is not going to, it's not a virus. It's an algae, it's a plant. It's the only reason it would grow even more would be if there were inadequate other plants in the tank and way too much nitrate nutrition. Plants reduce nitrates. Nitrates are not toxic. Nitrates are nutrition. But you want to control the nitrates in order to be able to keep algae down. Like this BBA thing. That's a function of high nitrates. So control the nitrates by having more plants that are absorbing more of the nitrates. Reduce your feeding. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Put another ½ inch to 1 inch of sand on your substrate. And you'll be resolving the problem. Alright. We are at the end of 2 hours here. Boys and girls, hasn't this been fun? Butt band. Oh, butt band. Somebody got butt banned. Rick Frith. Rick, did I give you a wrench? I did not. I did now. Jack Cat. Denroy deleted Jack Cat. Jack Cat said, any tips on getting rid of Hydra without killing snails? I know a lot don't like snails, but I do, and the chemicals to kill Hydra kill snails. I think we've covered it. But the solution is put fish in there that eat Hydra. You don't have fish in there that'll eat Hydra. What you probably have is baby fish. That's normally where you get Hydra. You're feeding baby brine shrimp to baby fish, and the Hydra just love it. The baby fish can't eat it. So the solution to that, since the Hydra are firmly attached to the glass or whatever other hardscape is in there, remove the baby fish, dump out the tank, clean it good, refill it and put the fish back in, and the Hydra will be miraculously gone. You don't need toxins to get rid of it. Love my BBA in fairness. It does. It's a beautiful plant. You know, it's wavy and it's very aesthetic. All right, chillin', we done. What did aquatic desert never hear of? I don't know. The grenade probably. All right, we're out of here. Jordan Croft. Jordan, nice to see you. Let's give you a wrench. Ta-da. Gren Woods. Hello, Gren Woods. ABS. Okay, I think I said hello to everybody. Joe MTL. If I had pond water and I get scuds and planaria, is it dangerous for my cherry shrimp? For the babies, it is. You won't get babies. But if you put some small fish in there, they're not going to bother your shrimp, and they will get rid of the scuds and certainly the planaria. Cory cats. Pygmy Cory cats. That'll do it. Pygmy Cory cats. They'll eat the baby scuds and the baby planera. All right. We're at 2 hours and 4 minutes. Love you all. We're done. We're gone. Listen, get over to father.fish, please. I'm sure you already are very active with all of our videos. We need your help with that. We need help sharing the videos. If you could please share the video on any other platform you're on. It will help bring FatherFish in front of people who would never otherwise know about FatherFish or deep substrates or any of the good stuff we're doing all the time. So please do that. Thank you all so much for all of your magnificent support. We had a video this week that went 75,000. Absolutely astounding. In a matter of a week. Where I have promised, sworn, pledged to keep my hands off the titles and thumbnails long enough to get this channel built. So it's now up to those who believe they know what they're doing. Because I sure don't. Bless you all. Bye for now. I think we're done. And